Hi. Hi, guys. We ready for another story? This one's called Ghost Brother. Here's your ghost brother. Here he is. Okay, gotta get ready here. Get my drink. I'm gonna prop Dave's phone up right here. Right on the little one's legs. Her shoes. How about that? And I'm just gonna start, okay? It's gonna be scary. I might read it all, I might not, it just depends. Let's see if we can stay awake, all right? Get my glasses, I have them right here, don't leave. Don't leave, please. Don't leave. All right, here we go. Brian Clan, are you here? Okay. This is a ghost story by Catherine Meyer Griffith. Ghost Brother. Hey, Pitbull. Thanks for coming. In life, we think of ghosts as rarities. We do not know that every rustle and squeak, every scratch of twig upon the screen, or moan of wind along the eaves is someone passing in the journeys of the night. Quote from Cat Magic, 1986, by Jonathan Barry, with Whitley Schreiber. Let me message Carolyn, let her know. He's reading. I'm glad it's safe. We wonder what the origin of evil truly is, how it can affect and shape our lives. When the answer is easy to figure out, it's ghosts, evil ghost. Quote from someone, I don't remember who. Okay, now we're starting the story. Oh, I'd already figured out I was dead. There was no other sensible conclusion to arrive at. When I awoke, if awaking was the right term, because suddenly, after a time of blackness there, I was sitting on top of a fresh grave in this quaint but uncared for cemetery I recognized as the one down the road from our house. There was no headstone on it yet, so I couldn't read the name of the current inhabitant. Perhaps it wasn't my grave, wasn't my headstone to come. Or that's what I hoped, at first. City clouds raced above. Dried leaves danced in a chill wind around the tombstones. It was raining, a steady forlorn drizzle, but it soaked everything. Drab splotches of brown spotted the earth, and bundles of witchy dead branches bounced around me like tumbleweeds. There were no birds, no creepy crawly insects. Oh, thank you, Eva. Thank you, I'm glad you're here. I got you and Pitbull and a couple other people lurking, and that's just fine. Okay, now, let's see. Not a living thing. The colors were off, too. Everything had a veneer of gray covering it, and the air around me hummed with eerie echoes, as if a crowd of people were whispering just beyond the threshold of my hearing. It hurt my head, made me irritable, angry. I looked down at myself and was surprised to see I was dressed in my old brown suit, the one I only wore to weddings or funerals. It was too tight and the legs too short. I'd always meant to buy a new one, but somehow had never gotten around to it. After all, I hadn't attended a funeral or a wedding in years. I could see through myself. Damn, I was a pane of glass. I wiggled my fingers in front of my face. They were transparent, too. My head was really killing me now, making me realize I could feel pain. Again, I thought that odd. Where was I and what the heck was I doing here? Sheesh, what the heck was I doing here? Must have really laid one on last night. Maybe I should stay off the booze for a couple of days. What a trip. I racked my brain but couldn't recall what had gotten me here. No, I was alive, wasn't I? Wasn't I? This was just some sort of drink-induced hallucination, right? Rising to my feet, the mud on the grave remained clinging to the ground and wet blades of grass, yet my suit was clean. Gazing around at the grave sites, I thought I was alone, but then, out of the corner of an eye, caught another see-through person scampering away. It had been hiding behind a tree, spying on me. As it vanished into the rain curtain amidst the fringe of trees surrounding the cemetery, I heard it laugh. You poor sucker, you don't have a clue yet, do you? Laugh. Let me tell you, that didn't reassure me much. It didn't sound human. I blinked and everything turned black and shadowy for a moment and slowly came back into focus. My left hand disappeared and reappeared, my outline blurred. Oh, something huge skittered around in the branches of the trees above me and made a heart-stomping screech. Again, nothing human. Oh, I was dead, all right. Dead as a doornail. Dead as someone without a pulse or a heartbeat, and whose blood had stopped moving in their veins could be. It was the why, how, and when that eluded me. I fought to remember what had happened before I found myself sprawled on the grave, but once more there was nothing, a frustrating blank. Was this my paradoxical reward, some in-between limbo, or was it, heaven help me, hell? If it was heaven, there was one weird one. There were no angels and harp music, no fluffy clouds of cotton candy white, no departed dear ones to welcome and comfort me. Well, what am I supposed to do now, for Pete's sake? I grilled the silent graves around me. I had the overwhelming feeling I was supposed to be somewhere else, that I had somewhere very important to go, something very important to do, but couldn't remember where or what it was. Hi, Carolyn. Let's see. Hey, anyone around? Anyone here? I yelled into the waning afternoon. Of course, no answer, nothing. The silence was beginning to freak me out. My laugh startled me. Who did I expect to be in a cemetery anyway? The dead don't make small talk or noise. The dead are dead. I wove through and around the burial plots, and when approaching the street, I checked for cars before I crossed. There were none. I hadn't seen even one, nor a truck, or a motor scooter, or a bicycle. A motor scooter or a bicycle, since I'd woken up. No airplanes in the ashen sky. I had to go home. Tessa must be worried sick. Tessa, my wife of 25 years. Long blonde hair that softly framed her sweet, understanding face. those large amber eyes that'd laugh at me, so full of love and tenderness. My beautiful Tessa, the mother of my son, the love of my life, my angel. A flood of memories washed over me, and I sighed in relief, grateful I remembered something. I had a family, a home, and a wife. I needed to get back to them. The insight came to me that things hadn't been very good between us lately, hadn't been for a long time. In fact, I recalled Tessa had asked for a separation or something like it. That wasn't good. I loved her and would never be able to live without her. What else was I not remembering? My house, our house, Tessa's and mine, was a few streets over, and I carefully made my way there. At first I was afraid I couldn't leave the cemetery grounds. As I stepped into the street, something pulled at me, trying to yank me back. I tore free and kept trekking. Everything I did and everything I saw seemed to be moving in slow motion, like a bad dream. My feet were heavy at the ends of my legs, and I was shuffling through air as thick as honey. If this was what being dead was like, I didn't like it one bit. I felt lost, unsettled, as if this was punishment for something. My grandmother, Celie, my mom's mother, a hag of a woman who never liked me but hated my poor brother, Gerald, even more, used to describe what she thought the afterlife would be like. It's nothing, Sonny, an inky, bottomless, sightless nothing, where you'd never feel anything, ever again. In time, it'd drive you plumb insane. She'd cackle like some old witch. That's what a person gets when they aren't good people. Heck, she should talk. She was the most miserly woman I'd ever known. Never helped no one. Never really cared about no one but herself. She died alone after falling down her basement steps and breaking her neck. Her body laid there for 4 days before anyone, a neighbor, upon seeing her starving dog running around in endless circles outside in the backyard days later, thought to check on her. When he couldn't get an answer from ringing the doorbell for 10 minutes, he called 911. Of course, she was very dead. Poor old lady, they said, but I never felt any pity for the selfish woman. She should have had that first alert thingy for around her neck, or at least carried a cell phone. Some people just aren't real smart, I guess. I kept walking. My house, a 2-story brick on the end of the street, guarded by gnarled oak trees, was lightless. Not one window had a glow in it. I tried to open the front, then the rear door, but they wouldn't budge. I couldn't get in. I could put my finger through the wood up to my arms, but something was keeping me from going inside. So frustrating. I peered through the windows like some thief, casing the joint, but couldn't see anything. Too dark. Maybe I'd turned into some sort of vampire and had to be... Maybe I'd turned into some sort of vampire and had to be invited in. Nah, silly. Hey, Jennifer. I thought you were my granddaughter Lexi for a minute. You have the same last names. I remember telling you that before. Nice to see you. It's a scary ghost story. Open sesame. Abracadabra. I was still on the outside. Damn it, let me in. What was going on here anyway? Where was Tessa? Her car, a 10-year-old Chevy Cavalier, was in the garage. I peeked in the window. There it was. Dented right fender and all. I never should have taken it out that night in the rain. The roads had been slick and the wind, almost an F1 tornado. Tessa had been so ticked. That was just another time my brother had swayed me, and not to the good either. That was Gerald, though. Always making me do things I knew I shouldn't be doing. Always causing me to get into trouble. Good thing I'd never told Tessa about the dog I ran over before I hit the tree. She loved animals, and for that would never have forgiven me. Carolyn, Jennifer Bradford's here. She might have fallen asleep, but she might still be awake. She conks out pretty quick. 1 minute she's there, and the next minute she's not. See the creepy doll there, Jennifer? Where's one of her legs? Okay. You do these days? Okay, let's see. That was Gerald's harebrained idea, too. There you go. Let's see how close you can get to that mangy mutt without flattening him. I thought I had it all under control, and then the car had swerved on the rainy country road, and I'd felt it run over something. Thump, thump. Oh, oops, darn, you hit him anyway. And Gerald had laughed. He always laughed when something bad happened. He wouldn't let me return and help the creature either. It's dead. What are you going to do, revive it? More laughter. That Gerald had such a cold heart. Unable to gain access to the house, I sat on the front porch swing, the one I'd given Tessa for her last birthday, for a long time, trying to decide what to do next. I missed Tessa so much. It seemed as if I hadn't seen her in a long time. For a second or two, I thought I heard her soft voice, her sweet laughter on the wind. Oh, Tessa. We'd loved each other since our high school days. I'd met her when she was 15, and I was 17. She was a sophomore, and me a senior. She was sensitive, artistic girl who made straight A's, while I was just a loser who could barely pass my classes. I graduated by the skin of my teeth, and often wondered what she'd ever seen in me. I'd taken one look at her, she'd smiled shyly, and I'd been hooked for life. I asked her out that first day, and soon we were inseparable. After high school, I'd gone into the Army, and she'd waited faithfully until I got out. We became engaged and got married. Sure, I had problems. I traced back to my service days, fighting in a brutal desert war that messed me up royally. For years afterward, I had horrendous nightmares, jumping up from bed and crashing through the house in the dark, as if I were still on patrol. It went on for years. Because during the war I'd killed, mostly goaded on by my brother, as usual. Gerald liked to kill. No wonder I had nightmares. But time went by and I got better. Well, better in that the nightmares subsided, and I found a job in a stove factory, putting stoves together. It was a job I hated, and eventually I answered one of those over-the-road trucking ads that promise you top money and every weekend home, driving the big rigs. They lied. The money wasn't much at first, and I was home very few weekends. It was hard on my body, hard on my marriage. One day in a truck stop, while waiting out a blizzard, I ended up talking to a guy who owned and operated his own 18-wheeler. He swore by being his own boss and choosing his own loads, making his own schedule. Said the money was better too. He was getting ready to retire and offered me his truck, a Peterbilt conventional, if I wanted it, for what I thought was a steal price. What can I say? The guy liked me. So when I got home a few days later, Tessa and I discussed it, and then we bought it. Put us deep in debt, but Tessa worked an extra job to pay it off. She was like that. Paid off our house quick, too. She hated to be in debt. It was a good truck, and we made a fine living off of it as the years went by, except those times when gas went sky high, or when I didn't feel like working. Gerald often talked me into taking large hunks of time off so we could have some fun. Life shouldn't be all work, he'd say. So what if we never had that new house out in the woods Tessa and I dreamed of? Or so what if our bank account didn't always cover our bills? Tessa found a way to make ends meet by cutting back on things she'd wanted, clipping coupons, doing without, and buying used cars. Who says coupons and who says coupons? I say coupons. One of my sisters says coupons. I think my dad says coupons. I don't remember what my mom said. Even then, we still broke even. Tessa got a job as a graphic artist at a local newspaper, making peanuts, and we limped on through our life. Lousy job, they worked her to death, but she was a good sport and never complained, just worked harder. I didn't want children, but Tessa did, so by and by, we had a son, Nicholas Benjamin. He was a considerate, smart boy and never gave us any trouble. Good thing, or Gerald would have wanted me to beat him. Well, he still wanted me to beat him, but mostly I didn't. The boy was a quiet sort, kept to himself, scary smart too. Tessa loved and doted on him, did everything for him. He was her world when he was growing up. But at 18 years old, after graduating with top honors from high school, he picked up and moved all the way to California. Since he'd been a little kid, he dreamed of living there, of the sunny days and the ocean. He hated the Midwest cold winters, the snow and ice. His moving so far away nearly killed Tessa, but in time she accepted it. Nicky was so happy in the land of sun and surf. He did well, too, finding a cushy job as a contracted troubleshooter for a large computer company. Soon, no, hold on, guys. Plug my phone in. There we go. Let's see. Soon, he was making more money than anyone we'd ever known. He got kind of snooty about it, I think. But hey, that's kids for ya. You raise them, sacrifice, and penny pinch for them, and then they grow up, run off, and forget you. We'd go see him whenever we could, holidays mostly. Either Tessa would go along with me on a cross-country run in the Peterbilt, and we'd drop in on him, or we'd travel up in the car at Christmas and spend a few days with him and his family. Our son, soon after he settled in his new home, fell in love, got married. Soon after he settled in his new home, fell in love, got married, and had a little girl and a boy. It was so hard for Tessa every time we had to leave. She adored these children. She often spoke of moving there so she could spend more time with all of them. While I didn't want to, I liked our life the way it was. Liked it being just me and Tessa. I guess I was a little selfish with her. Our visits didn't always go smoothly. Last Christmas, while visiting the kids and grandkids, I did the unforgivable and, provoked by my pesky brother, made a scene over the supper my daughter-in-law had made. Everything was way too spicy for my tastes. Some of those dishes, hey, I could barely stomach, much less recognize. Well, Jared wouldn't stop whispering things in my son's Jared wouldn't stop whispering things my son's wife kept doing wrong in my ear. And usually I kept my cool, but this time I lost my temper and stomped out. It was either leave or say something truly hurtful. Close, too close. My daughter-in-law was such a sensitive, oh please don't hurt my feelings, Chrissy type. My son was furious with us and gave me the silent treatment the rest of the night. I drove us home early the next morning, cutting 3 days off our stay. No one treated me like that. Was my wife mad at me? Whew. Was my wife mad at me? Whew. But she forgave me by and by, as she always did, no matter how gauche I could be. It took a while, many I'm sorries, and 3 dozen roses, yellow being her favorite color. The woman loved me, plain and simple. I took advantage of that every time. Wasn't very loving of me, I know, but that Gerald, he kept reminding me that I shouldn't let anyone make a fool out of me in any way. I was the boss. I merited respect and adoration, and if I didn't get it, why, I should slap the hell out of someone. Even Tessa when she deserved it. Ooh. And the doll just scared me. Oh my gosh. I looked up and there's the doll right here on the tray. The phone being leaned up against it. Tessa, where was she? If I'd had my cell phone with me, I would have called her, but there was nothing in my pockets. No wallet, no keys, no phone. Not even a doobie I could smoke to take the tension off. The day was ending and the sun, a gleaming ball, was descending into the horizon. The trees around me were filled with bodiless whispers and eerie cries and moans. I was cold. If I could have, I would have shivered. Yet it wasn't the kind of cold you could attribute to the weather. I felt cold inside, a human icicle. There were so many gaps in my memory, and it bugged me. What should I do now? Something scuttled along the edge of my sight, and I turned my head. Not quick enough. I barely saw the shadowy figure dodge back into the murk. I was pretty sure it was the same thing I'd seen in the cemetery, stalking me. Who the hell are you, and why are you following me? No answer. Come on, show yourself. Stop playing these stupid games. I was losing patience. Still no answer. Well, I watched the rain fall and racked my brain. What else did I have to remember? It was so important. Life or death important. I must connect the dots. A face, sharp and angular, square-jawed, with callous eyes that bored into a person, haunted me. Who? And it finally came to me. It was Gerald, my dead brother Gerald. Oh boy. The years unraveled behind me. I was going back in time, and I remembered. Gerald had been my only sibling, my older brother by 3 years, and he'd been a mean cuss all of his life, a hardened criminal. We'd had a hate-love relationship since the beginning because I'd been considered the good the one who'd make it in life. Not that driving an 18-wheeler for a living made me so special. It was because I worked in an honest trade and paid my bills with money I'd earned, had a loving wife, and a kid, a mortgage, friends. That made me a better man than him. He'd gotten into trouble as a teenager, stealing cars to help pay for his drug habit, later stealing everything that wasn't tied down, and his life had gotten worse the older he'd become. Gerald couldn't tell the truth about anything if his life depended on it. He'd had this overpowering need to control everyone around him and messed up anyone he came close to. like a human albatross. He couldn't face the truth about himself either. Made excuses for how mean he was. Thought he was an all right guy. Ha! He'd had three wives, all of whom he cheated on and mistreated. 2 kids who he neglected and who grew up to be as destructive as he was. He'd almost messed up my life a couple of times, pulling me into his harebrained schemes and vendettas. When Gerald had a grudge against someone, he'd never stop until he'd gotten his revenge. His pound of flesh, as he put it. Then I'd met Tessa, and she changed me. He'd been jealous of that, and more. Slowly it came to me, the final details of Gerald's life and his death. Gerald had a son, Mike. The two of them, when time and money ran out, lived in squalor in Wyoming somewhere together. In the end, Mike, high on drugs his father shared with him, and not in his right mind, partly due to Gerald's lifelong mistreatment, shot and killed him in a rage one night. The boy went to prison. And Gerald? Well, Gerald, as unbelievable as it sounds, became a malevolent ghost that has followed and taunted me ever since. I couldn't get away from him. He'd appear on the passenger seat beside me in my rig when I was driving, make me speed, go through red lights, drink a little too much over lunch. He told me to do horrible things to people. He was forever whispering in my ears, "Hit that guy. He deserves it. Take that laptop sitting at your friend's house. He's rich. He won't miss it. Yeah, stay in the bar and drink another round or two. Spend the bill money. Get drunk. Who cares if Tessa's waiting up? Concerned over you. Hey, that woman looks hot. Hit on her. Go ahead. Take her to bed. No wife can tell you what to do. You do what you want to. That's it. Don't let anyone get in your way." Oh, I remembered my brother. I'd closed my eyes, and when I opened them, it was morning. I was standing inside my house, watching a bizarre scene unfolding. It was me and Tessa, fighting. I was accusing her of cheating on me, and she was crying. "I'm not cheating on you, Bobby, I swear. Why are you acting like this?" Because Gerald had told me she was cheating. Gerald had said she was leaving me for some rich guy who could give her everything I couldn't, divorcing me and taking all I'd worked so hard for. At first I didn't believe him, but he never let up, and eventually I knew he was telling the truth. Tessa, the woman I loved, was going to abandon me and make a fool of me, leave me all alone, like everyone else in my life had. I couldn't let that happen. "I love you, Bobby. Why would I want to leave you?" "You're lying. Who is he?" "Who is who?" "Your boyfriend. I know you have one. You better confess, or I won't have a choice." I remembered the look of anguish on her lovely face. "I don't have a boyfriend, and why are you doing this? What's wrong with you?" I could see the terror in her eyes after I pushed her to the floor. She cringed away from me when I reached for her. Whisper, whisper in my ears. The room around us was like it had always been, clean and pleasingly decorated in shades of brown and gold. Pretty framed pictures hanging on freshly painted walls, all done by Tessa. "Hi, coffee and donuts." "Okay, thank you." She was good at that kind of stuff. The carpeting spotless, on the sofa, one of those big plush wall hangers with built-in recliners. A lot of love in that house. My wife was an immaculate housekeeper, a fantastic cook. a loving wife until recently. God, I loved her. I always loved her. Will always love her. So why was I treating her this way? I can't let you divorce me. Take all we've worked so hard for so many years. You've got to understand that. I can't let you go. I'm not going anywhere. What are you talking about? Please, Bobby, look at me. Listen to me. Instead, I went downstairs. The rest of the morning was a blur. I couldn't remember what had happened after that. I felt so strange. A strong wind, and I would have dissolved into the woodwork. I wasn't that lucky. Let me get a sip of this water for a second. The next thing I knew, I was sitting on a cot in a jail cell, 4 by 8 feet at the most. The walls closing in on me were a gunmetal gray to match the bars across the front. It was gloomy, depressing. It smelled like urine and dirty underwear. I could hear weeping and someone shouting and cussing somewhere down the long, narrow hall my prison looked out onto. A gruff voice pleaded in the cell adjacent to mine. I'm innocent, innocent, I say. I didn't mug, knife that tourist and take his wallet. I didn't. Somebody, please come and let me out of here. Anybody. Someone was throwing up in another cell, though it could be the same man who was weeping or the one who was shouting. I didn't know. And the stench drifted into my cell. I gagged. I got up and threw myself at the bars. My hand, my arms, shadows could go through them, but my body wedged between the iron, and I couldn't get out. I couldn't run away. And oh, how I wanted to. I didn't belong here. I'd done nothing wrong. So why was I caged like an animal? What was going on? Again, I thought, what was this? Hell? And why am I here? Why can't I go home to Tessa and have the life I'd once had? Because you're dangerous, a soft voice behind me said. I need to be locked up. That's why. I turned and there was Gerald, lounging on the cot, lying prone, his arms tucked up under his head. He was grinning at me with that evil, I know something you don't know smile of his, the one I hated. It always meant he'd done something bad. Oh, great. If you're here, it can't be good. What do you want? Not much, just to keep you company, brother. Help you remember things. At first, it can be a little disconcerting to find yourself here. Here, the ghost on the cot waved his hand in a circle above his head. You know, the land of the dead, ghost world, limbo, whatever you want to call this place. Ah, so I am dead, huh? You had any doubt? No, not really. I think the first time I was zipped to another location, like somebody beamed me up, I kind of suspected. I looked out through the bars again. There'd been a noise down the hallway somewhere. Voices. Maybe they were coming to let me out. Over my shoulder, I asked my dead brother, okay, so what am I doing here in this cell? And why can't I get out? You have a lesson to learn. This place is great for that. I bet. My brother was standing beside me now. You've already learned a few things since you got here. I met his glittering eyes and shrugged. Most of it I didn't understand. You will. Then my brother's ghost was gone. Gerald, you just can't up and disappear like that. What is it? What am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to do next? Come back. The world spun. I shut my eyes, and when I opened them, I was again in my house. It was morning. I watched in horror as Tessa and I fought in the living room, shades of our former selves. It was as if I were observing some awful play, something that had already happened. I saw Tessa crying. I saw her denying my accusations. I was so mean to her. I saw Gerald's ghost in the corner, urging the other me on, telling me what I should do, making trouble like he always did before and after death. Don't listen to him, I warned. Don't listen. My wife was saying, I swear it, Bobby. I love only you. I've never been unfaithful. I didn't take that money out of the bank. I didn't write that note to the company that got you fired. Please, you have to believe me. I'm not leaving you. As before, I watched myself exit the room. I followed as my other self went downstairs and unlocked my gun cabinet, the impressive iron one that housed my collection of guns. I'd been buying weapons for years, even when we couldn't afford it, and was extremely proud of them. I had a fortune in that cabinet. I couldn't stop the other me from doing what he did next. It was as if I were in a slow motion nightmare. Gerald was goading the dream. Gerald was goading the dream me on, and he returned to the living room. Tessa could have left, could have run away, but she didn't. She'd been waiting, so sure she could talk some sense into the other me. The gun in my hand came up, and I shot her. She tried to get away. I pursued and shot her 2 more times in the back. She fell to the floor. My nightmare self stood over her and glared down. You're never going to leave me now, are you, Tessa? He told her. You know I couldn't allow it. I love you too much. He knelt down beside the body. There was blood spreading everywhere on the beige carpeting, seeping under the couch and coffee table. Oh no, I murmured, tears streaming down my face. So ghosts could cry. What had I done? What had I done? Why had I done it? Why would I kill the woman I loved? Gerald. It was his fault. He'd driven me crazy with suspicions and mistrust, tricked me into doing this terrible thing. He'd made my blood boil and made me think my wife was running around on me, going to abandon me. None of it had been true, not one single word. How had I not known that? Why, oh why had I trusted Gerald? He made me kill her, I brooded, like he'd goaded his son to kill him. Damn, that Gerald was as evil dead as when he'd been alive. Maybe more. Time hiccuped. Now the house was hushed around me, and it was later in the day. The shadows had shifted. It was evening. Behind me, there was yellow crime scene tape crisscrossed over the door entrance. The living room was empty except for the outline of the murder victim on the floor in front of the couch. Only the bloodstains splattered across the couch and carpeting. The walls remained. The body gone, the gun gone, taken for evidence most likely, and locked in some metal box in the bowels of the police station awaiting a trial. There was broken glass scattered everywhere, and the lamp and knickknacks, Tessa's tiny glass horses and cats that had been on the coffee table were in pieces on the floor, like my life, in pieces, no going back now. Let me get another sip here. One more sip. Mary, are you here? Mary, Mary, quite contrary. And what about cross-eyed Betty? Oh, interference? Really? What? Ugh. Disdain signal here at the cottage. Is it any better yet? Or is it still messed up? Sounds like the wind. I have a fan going. Is that what it is? The wind? The fan? Pitbull? Has it been this way the whole time? Am I reading just to read and... Okay, let me shut it off, okay? See if that makes a difference. Is that any better? Or is it the actual signal itself? Oh, you can hear me okay, just background noise. Okay, so then it was the fan. Okay, better. Oh, I wish you guys would have told me I've been reading for 47 minutes. You should have told me. It's been 48 minutes now. Goodness. Should have said something before now. Oh, well. Okay, let's just finish this. Okay. Get back to it. Let's see, where are we? Now the house was hushed around me, and it was later in the day. The shadows had shifted. It was evening. Behind me there was yellow crime scene tape crisscrossed over the door entrance. The living room was empty, except for the outline of the murder victim on the floor in front of the couch. Only the bloodstains splattered across the couch and carpeting the walls remained. The body gone, the gun gone, taken for evidence most likely, and locked in some... Okay, we read that. Okay. There was broken glass, the knickknacks, tiny horses. Okay. What had happened after I'd shot her? Had she died? Again, my memory failed me. What was I doing here? And what was the point of this charade? Was I sorry I'd shot her? Oh, yes, I hadn't meant to. I hadn't. I stumbled out onto the front porch and sat down on the swing again. My mind was racing, and I felt so sad. Outside now it was dark. Not the usual dark of a normal earthly night, but a greenish, ebony darkness that reminded me of a tornado sky, a tornado world. I felt weird, heavy with the anguish of what I'd done and what would happen next. I was so frightened. Whispers and muffled cries arose from the distant trees like smoke and echoed across the lawns. I stared into the gloom and thought I saw these things low to the ground and hidden in shadows, scurrying around in the deeper darkness. What were they? Were they after me, or was I one of them? And then I was back in the jail cell, except I wasn't actually in the cell, but observing myself from the outside, apparently a much earlier self, a more solid one, huddled on the cot, shoulders heaving, crying. I didn't mean to shoot her, I swear. I don't know what got into me. I was bemoaning. I loved her. She was my world. It was Gerald. He made me do it. Gerald was sitting beside the earlier me on the cot, laughing. My hands clutched the bars, and an overwhelmingly hatred came over me as I watched from the outside, watched my life crash around me, forever ruined, gone. You know you killed her. You know you killed her, your wife, don't you? Gerald was haranguing the other me. You're a cold-blooded, without redemption murderer. You're going to go on trial, and all your family and friends are going to hate you, turn their backs on you. You're going to be found guilty, and you're going to fry in the electric chair. No lifetime jail sentence for you in some cushy cell with 3 meals a day and a roof over your head. No, it'll be death. You're going to you're going to be strapped in, and you're going to die. Going to be dead just like me, because you're just like me, only worse. You killed your wife. I didn't kill no one. I was the victim. But you, my brother's ghost went on and on and on, yelling one moment at me, laughing in another. And then it happened. In the cell, I clutched my chest, and the blood drained from my face. Help me, help me. I think I'm having a heart attack. Oh, no. I looked on in horror as my other, more solid self collapsed on the bed, and I heard the death rattle and the body go still. Gerald, in the meantime, was slapping his ghost's thighs and chuckling. Well, what do you know, brother? Looks like you're going to join me even sooner than I thought. Welcome to the afterlife. Outside the cell, I screamed profanities and shook my fist at my brother. You did this. You did it all. If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to get you for this. I swear it. I'm going to chase you to hell if I have to and make you pay. I'm going to... Time whizzed by once again, and I was back in real time. If death had real time in it, I couldn't tell you. I had a lot to learn yet. So far, it didn't seem to. Hopping me all over like a jumping bean. Gerald and my corpse were gone, and I was alone now inside the darkened cell, sobbing. So that's what had happened? That's how I died? In a jail cell? A forsaken criminal who'd murdered the wife he'd loved, all because of my brother? Lifting my head from my hands, I listened. There were voices coming through the door and down the hallway towards me. Real voices. I could almost understand the words. Guards. It was the first human voices I'd heard clearly since this crazy odyssey had begun. Oh God, I hoped they could help me. Lunging up from the cot, I threw myself at the bars and was frantic when I discovered I couldn't move through them. Trapped from the inside again, I couldn't leave the cell. 2 men in brown uniforms stopped in front of it and stared in. The first one was short, thin, and had a square-shaped face. The second was taller, heavier, and had blonde hair in a military-styled cut. I tried to get their attention. I waved my arms and stomped my feet. I screamed at the top of my lungs to no avail. The 2 men didn't see me, didn't hear me. It took me a while to comprehend that and calm down. Shocked, I listened to what they were saying. I tried once or twice to interrupt them, tell them the truth about what had really happened, how sorry I was, that I was right there in front of them, but they didn't respond. Down the hallway, I could hear Gerald laughing. So this is where it happened, huh? The first guard muttered, peering into the empty cell. Yep, last Wednesday. I came back. I was on the late shift that night from supper, and my rounds and on my rounds found him slumped on the cot in the corner there, the heavier man said. Died of a heart attack. The coroner said he went just like that. He snapped his fingers in the air. And no one had talked to him about why he'd killed his wife like he did? No, didn't have time. He was brought in about 6 that evening, and his lawyer hadn't shown up yet. He refused to talk to anyone at first, though the arresting officer, Reynolds, told me later that when he'd first taken him into custody at the scene of the crime, at the house over the body, and put the cuffs on him, he'd been out of his mind, raving something about his brother having made him kill her. Something crazy like that. Turns out later that his brother was dead, has been dead for years. His druggy son shot him to death. What a family. Yeah, a family of wackos, the first guard agreed. The real psycho nutcases can make up some wild stories, all right. 3 bullets, 1 in her chest and 2 in her back. She was trying to get away, poor woman. That's pretty cold. So no one knows why he killed his wife then, huh? Not really. That's the grand mystery here. His family said he'd been behaving strange lately, hearing voices, disappearing for days at a time, and not going into work, and that his wife was considering a separation or a divorce. It's not entirely clear. But there was no history of any violence with the two, not one iota. Sure, he collected guns and had a cabinet full of them in the basement, but he was a peaceful, mild-mannered man who wouldn't hurt a fly, usually, or so everyone said. Then one day out of the blue, he goes and shoots his wife to death, and before anyone can find out why, he dies in this cell of a heart attack. Talk about ironic. Talk about bizarre. The blonde-headed officer rubbed the side of his face and canted his head. A real, honest-to-God, eternal mystery no one will ever solve. And I hate mysteries. Now, no one will ever know why he actually did it, will they? No, I guess we never will. The two were moving away from the cell. But that cell gives me the creeps now. Ever since I found him dead in it, like that, the taller man's voice drifted back down the hall. Yeah, the other guard replied faintly. It's haunted for sure. Yeah, haunted. Both men snickered and locked the outer hallway door behind them. And inside the cell, the ghost was screaming. The end. That was it, guys. Kind of a long, involved story. But we made it to the end, right? Reminds me of one of those Lifetime movies or something, right? You liked it? Okay, good. Pitbull liked it. Jennifer liked it. Mary isn't here. Mary, if you come on the replay, welcome. And Cross-Eyed Betty and Brian Clan, our little reading gang. Carolyn's probably sleeping. Probably fell asleep in her chair. Okay, guys, thanks so much for coming. Glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I kind of liked it too. There's still 5 more stories in this book. Same here, Pitbull. You're here for the crickets? Coffee? Yeah, you can hear them now with the fan off, can't you? Sorry, guys, I should have had that off the whole time. I didn't know you guys couldn't hear me too well. Okay, guys. Oh, good. I love you. Good, you love. Glad you love the crickets too. Yeah, Pitbull, I really did. I was thinking, oh, he didn't exist, but yeah, it wasn't too bad. Okay, y'all. Wind burn out. That's cute. Okay, guys. Good night or good day, wherever you are. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye. Nighty-night, coffee and donuts. Nighty-night, everybody. Bye-bye.